As I have reported for years, the shadowy Federal Reserve System has propped up world banks, bailed out its cronies, and printed fiat dollars in near total secrecy. But it's apparent now that there were those who knew exactly what was going on, namely the Washington establishment and the global money elite. Even today, they know the Federal Reserve does such things as rescue certain Wall Street central bankers that are part of the Fed, float loans to third world dictators, and risk our entire economy by devaluing our dollar in order to pay for their investment mistakes. And the Fed has always taken special measures to keep the American people from finding out how they operate. Most Americans have no idea that the Federal Reserve is not part of our government and is not accountable to any representative of our country. Instead, the Fed answers to a powerful global money elite that has no allegiance to any country, only themselves. Their purpose is to control the world's money and wield the power. And most of them are not American. But thanks to groups like Campaign for Liberty, many Americans have been awakened. And thank God for brave politicians like Congressman Ron Paul and Senator Rand Paul, among others. Americans from coast to coast are waking up to the secretive elite group that runs the Fed and the many problems the Fed causes in our economy. I'm also thankful that there are brave people in places of power who are fighting to get the Federal Reserve thoroughly investigated by a true, unbiased audit of their secret creation and manipulation of our currency. This is why many American banks and bankers and investment firms that are part of the Fed are in cahoots with it, are shaking in their boots, desperate to hold on to both their power and their secrecy. They've done everything they can to stop any effort to shine a public spotlight on the Federal Reserve. You know, when President John F. Kennedy signed Executive Order 11110 on June 4, 1963, he directly challenged the constitutionality of the Federal Reserve. His executive order returned to the federal government, specifically to the Treasury Department, the constitutional power to create and issue currency, money, without going through the privately owned Federal Reserve Bank. President Kennedy's executive order gave the Treasury Department the explicit authority to issue silver certificates against any silver bullion, silver or standard silver dollars in the Treasury. This means that for every ounce of silver in the U.S. Treasury's vault, the government could introduce new money into circulation based on the silver bullion physically held therein. As a result, more than $4 billion in United States notes were brought into circulation in $2 and $5 denominations. Although $10 and $20 denominations of the United States notes were never circulated, they were being printed by the Treasury Department when Kennedy was assassinated. You know, it's very interesting that President Kennedy was assassinated shortly after the speech he gave at Columbia University, in which he threatened to expose the Federal Reserve. In this speech, made at Columbia University on November 12, 1963, 10 days before his assassination, President Kennedy said, "The high office of the President has been used to foment a plot to destroy Americans' freedom, and before I leave office, I must inform the citizens of this plight." According to the Constitution of the United States, Article 1, Section 8, only Congress has the authority to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and a foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. However, since a Christmas vacation vote in 1913, this article has been ignored by the creation and existence of the Federal Reserve Act, which has given a privately owned corporation the power and authority to create and coin the money of the United States. The Federal Reserve is comprised of 12 private credit monopolies who have been given the authority to control the supply of the Federal Reserve notes. interest rates, and all the other parts of the monetary and banking apparatus are also included. The way the Federal Reserve works is this. The private credit monopolies create or print Federal Reserve notes that are then lent to the American government with interest. They use our printing presses, our ink, our paper, our labor to create money out of nothing, to then loan to us at full face value, and then charge us interest on it. The government levies income taxes from the citizens to pay the interest on the money it has received from the Federal Reserve, which has literally created the money out of thin air. It's interesting to note that the Federal Reserve Act and the 16th Amendment, which gave Congress the power to collect income taxes, were both passed in 1913. You see, they were both needed to make each other work. The Federal Reserve notes are not backed by anything of intrinsic value, such as gold or silver. It's also fascinating that one of the first things President Kennedy's successor, Lyndon Baines Johnson, did after he took office was to recall all of the Treasury notes that were in circulation, cease all further creation of currency, and return all powers in this regard back to the Federal Reserve. Coincidence? You decide.